we can. Each man must do his bit.
Welcome to another edition of the Public Interest. My name is David Granger, and on this series of programs, we examine issues of interest to the Guyanese public at home and in the diaspora. And today we visit or revisit a topic which concerns all of us because we were all young once, and many of us are older now. But youth are the future of the nation, and when problems affect our young people, those problems would affect the prospects of the entire country. In Guyana, young people constitute the majority of the population, and this is typical of other countries too, but 2 out of every 3 Guyanese are below the age of 35. That is the size of the youth population. 1 in every 3 Guyanese is between the ages of 15 and 35. And 1 in every 5 is between the ages of 15 and 25. We were all young once, and we know what happens with young people. But young people are the future. That is inevitable. They're not some strange set of migrants. They are us, and we are them. There are over 155,000 young people in this country. But despite the size of the youth population, young people are unrepresented, and the problems facing many of them are underestimated, and they remain unsolved. That is the problem. Young people have problems which are unsolved, and they are unrepresented in the way that we approach the solution of those problems. And in political terms, they're really unrepresented as well, not just in terms of empowerment, but in terms of the ability to make decisions that affect their own lives. We look to the Constitution of Guyana. That is the supreme law. That is where we should start. And what does the Constitution say? This is not make-believe. This is the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And let me quote, "The aspirations of our young people who have declared that the future of Guyana belongs to its young people, who aspire to live in a safe society which respects their dignity, protects their rights, recognizes their potential, listens to their voices, provides opportunities, ensures a healthy environment, and encourages people of all races to live in harmony and peace, and affirm that their declaration will be binding on our institutions." Listen to this. Affirms that their declaration will be binding on our institutions and be part of the context of our basic law. That means that we have undertaken to incorporate these ideas and ideals in our basic law, that is to say, our Constitution. We acknowledge that the future belongs to them. What are we doing about it? What we see happening, unfortunately, is that young people are being underdeveloped. Unemployment is the most pernicious problem, the biggest problem facing young school leavers. Young adults who do not complete their primary and secondary education satisfactorily will find it difficult to get employed satisfactorily when they become adults. Young university graduates who are unable to find satisfactory employment migrate. We are told that 4 out of 5 university graduates leave the country. And it is a fact. I myself, when I was in office, visited Bahamas. And in one island, one primary school in one island in the Bahamas had 20 graduates from University of Guyana teaching at the primary school. That is the problem, that many of our young graduates cannot find employment in their own country and have migrated as primary school teachers to other countries. And we must understand what is taking place. 4 out of 5. And why are they running? Why are they running? Because Guyana is no longer a paradise for them to stay and develop their families. And we must look at this question not only of migration, but of empowerment, how we treat our young people. When the PPP administration got into office in 2020, they sent home 1,700 young people. 1,700. These are not members of the APNU or PNC. These are young members of the civil service. They shut down the civil service staff college, the Bertram College of Public Service. Sent home 1,700 people. They didn't call them and say, do you have a party card? Why were you employed? We all know why they were sent home. We all know why the Bertram College was shut down. They're not interested in a professional public service. And that is why people migrate. Because the PPP doesn't want intelligent people running the public service. And dismiss them. Dismiss them. They didn't call it. There's no commission of inquiry. There's no investigation. And that is one of the problems facing our young people. Young mothers, young persons who headed families were simply sent home. My friends, employment is a big problem in Guyana. And many young people who leave secondary school and leave university cannot find good employment. Sometimes you pass the highways, you see people, what they call the 3B system, brooms, buckets, and basins. And people in the government call that employment. And they clean up the highways. That is what they do, clean up the highways, the medians. But many young people leaving secondary school and leaving University of Guyana are not interested in cleaning up the highways and getting involved in the buckets and brooms scenario of employment. Youth employment is 26%. That is more than a quarter of the young people are unemployed. And unfortunately, more young women are unemployed than young men. And this is a class that they call the NEETS, not in employment, education, or training, NEET, not in employment, education, or training. So a large part of this youth population, intelligent people, are being treated as NEETs because the state has not been providing opportunities for their employment. Youth unemployment is a big problem, and it has its greatest impact in the villages in the hinterland, villages in the coastland. And it is worse in the hinterland. And sometimes you run courses, and many hinterland young people attend these courses, but when they go back, you train a person, an electrician, there's no electricity in the village. You train a person as an auto mechanic, and the village, it may have a few motorcycles, a few motorcycles, but you give them skills which are useless in the villages from which they come. So that form of training is virtually useless. It is not a form of training that they themselves want or the nation needs for its development. So we have this problem of NEETs. A lot of people don't see the point going to some training institution to get trained because they wouldn't be employed afterwards. And this contributes to the youth problem. Education is essential. And you can see what is happening over education. I don't like the word, but a form of apartheid is because we all celebrate, every year we celebrate National Grade 6. Oh, such and such a school has got so many scholars. And at CXC, so many people have got 15, 18, 20 grade ones and all that. But it's a very small percentage. When you consider that about 15,000 people, young people, are writing the National Grade 6 exam, and only about 150 or fewer than 1,000 actually make those top grades. So the bulk of the people who write the National Grade 6 do not perform well, and we know what has happened. Even in September, and every September, you just check the records. Every September, we hear that, schools will not be open, or certain schools will not be open because repairs, and bearing in mind that schools closed since July or June, and at the start of September, the repairs have not been completed. Over and over again, and you see mothers having to picket the schools because the toilets aren't fixed. As you know, some schools don't even have toilets; they have these pit latrines, and repairs have not been completed. Every year, once the PPP is in office, they seem surprised every September that the school year starts. But education has to be put on a sound footing because without education, there will be problems of empowerment, there will be problems of employment, and there will be problems of equality. And there's no point talking about the six best schools which were established by the churches 100 years ago. Queen's College, Bishop, St. Stanislaus, St. Rose's, and what happens to the other 106? We don't get the same standards, and especially in the hinterland, we see a lower quality of construction, lower quality of administration, and this is an impediment to creating an equal society, a level playing field for young people. Unfortunately, also, the public education system, regardless of the number of bridges and the highways, the public education system is still producing too many illiterate and innumerate young people. They can't read, write, spell, and count properly. Look at the failure rates in 2024 for the national grade 6. Failure rates. We are an English speaking country, and still you have 34% of our children unable to write an English paper when they are 10 or 11 years old. We are talking about digital technology, but the 46% of our students are failing in mathematics. You know how now in 2024 we were talking about teaching maths only in the mornings and trying to do remedial work. This is a problem we face in APNU, but many of the initiatives we introduced in the APNU have been thrown out of the window. And between 1992 and 2024, the PPP have been in office for over 27 years, and they still can't get it right. And even when the APNU is in office, after 3 years, they engineered that horrible no confidence motion. 3 years, that's all. 2015 to 2018, when the PPP tried to drive us from office. And now they're in office again. We have the same problems affecting our young people at the national grade 6 level. They can't get it right in math, English, and mathematics. There are only 4 subjects they have at national grade 6, and 2 of them, they have high failure rates. My friends, in addition to that, half of the students who, even if they pass the national grade 6, do not remain until the final grades in school. Somewhere along the line, they'll drop out. In 5 regions, the dropout rate is below or is higher than the national average. In 5 of Guyana's 10 regions, the dropout rate is above the national average. My friends, the PVP itself admits that 6,000 children drop out of our primary and secondary schools and our vocational schools every year. And despite that knowledge, when the PPP got in the office in 1992, they dismantled the Guyana National Service, destroyed it. And the head of the GDF at the time knew he was part of the destruction of the National Service. And the National Service was a safety net for children who dropped out of the primary and secondary school system to get back into employment, so they would become the NEET, the not in education, employment or training core of Guyanese. That is why the National Service was created. It wasn't created to march and shoot. It was created for educational purposes. And the people in the GDF at the time in 2000 sat down and were complicit in the destruction of the Guyana National Service. Now is this tried? When the APNU got into office, we established the Guyana Youth Corps. The PPP came back again in 2020 and destroyed the Guyana Youth Corps. That is what the PPP has been doing. They have been underdeveloping the Guyana youth population. So the National Service is gone and the Guyana Youth Corps is gone. They came in and met the Borcham College of the Public Service. They destroyed it. So how can the PPP claim to be interested in the education of young people when it has destroyed all these institutions? National Service, the Youth Corps, the Borcham College. These were institutions which were geared for young people. My friend, there's a darker side to the story. That is, young people who drop out of school, to no one's surprise, are likely to become unemployed, but are likely also to become entrapped in antisocial behavior. Antisocial behavior, which causes distress to other people in society. Such behavior can include rowdyism, and PPP is complicit in this rowdyism, the type of rowdyism you saw on the 6th of March in West Coast Berbice and East Berbice quarantine. That rowdyism, hooliganism. You know, I remember in September 2019, before the GRE 2020, that hooliganism you saw on the street, when he tried to speak to the National Assembly, banging on the tables. And the PPP is the architect of that rowdyism. So it is not surprising that school dropouts would tend towards the sort of rowdyism which you saw the leaders of the PPP involved in. This is what causes so much distress to people in our villages along the coastline. Rowdyism in public places, trespassing, entering other people's premises without permission, drinking on the streets, and these spontaneous parties, encroaching on public roads, and of course, sometimes causing fatal accidents. It's a type of rowdyism which the PPP has encouraged. Unfortunately, still, the youth imprisonment rate has continued to soar under the PPP civic administration. I've been criticized for releasing young people from the New Opportunity Corps. Yeah, when I left office, there was not a single girl in the New Opportunity Corps. I sent them home to be with their families, and some of them with their children. Yes, many of the young girls who ended up at the New Opportunity Corps had been sent there because of wandering. Girls don't choose a life of wandering. There are circumstances which force them there, and we have to deal with the circumstances, not punish girls. Going to the New Opportunity Corps is not a vacation. And yes, I sent them. I sent women, mothers home from the New Amsterdam prison. I said, you know, being in prison is no place for a mother. But when we have a youth imprisonment rate of 16 or 1,700 out of a population, a prison population of 2,200, 1,700 of them are young people. You see, we have a big problem. Children shouldn't be in prison. Children should be in school. Children should be at home. Children should be in church or at play. They shouldn't be in prison. They should be at work, not in prison. And when you have to create juvenile detention centers and New Opportunity Corps, you're not solving the problem of youth unemployment. That is not a solution. The solution is in education. They should be in schools and colleges. We shouldn't be building prisons and detention centers for young people. I've been there. I've been to undernaming, and I said, get these girls home. And society hasn't collapsed. The girls have been able to reintegrate with their families, and in some cases, reintegrate with their children. That is the truth. And I've had thank you letters from the mothers who were released from the New Amsterdam hospital, New Amsterdam prison, to be with their families. But we need a different approach, and in a minute we'll discuss that approach, especially for young people. We cannot run a country where 1,700 of our young people are in jail out of 2,200 prisoners. 1,700 of them are young people, are going into juvenile detention centers. We have to solve the problem, and jailing people, those young people, is not a way to build a country. My friends, there's a very serious problem. That is the PPP administration's so-called Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport doesn't have a clue about handling young people's problems. They don't understand the need for education and empowerment of young people. They understand the need for entertainment. And look at the record of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, and you can see that it's a Ministry of Entertainment. And I would recommend that we separate youth from that ministry and let somebody else run it. Let them approach the youth issue separately. They don't understand what youth education and youth empowerment require. Out of all the money that is budgeted for that ministry, a very small proportion is devoted to youth empowerment and youth education. The bulk of it is for sporting, moderation, artists. That is what they think of our young people. Just bring an artist rather than encourage them to be empowered and educated. Years ago, they set up something called the President Youth Choice Initiative. They put a lot of buildings all over the country without consulting anybody. And when you go through the countryside, you'll see these broken down, empty buildings. But they feel that by just throwing money into these communities, by giving them bags of goodies and setting up these buildings, will solve the youth problem. We need to change our approach to the way we deal with the problems of facing young people. And the PPP doesn't have the answers. APNU AFC embarked on a correct course, but as I said, we only had 3 years before they brought that horrible no confidence motion. From 2015 to 2018, we didn't get much done, quite frankly, in terms of implementing our national youth. We have a national youth policy. That's how we started. We had a policy. We established the Guyana Youth Corps. We established the Guyana Youth Corps. And of course, the PPP shut it down as soon as they got it. We promoted Youth Entrepreneurial Skills Initiative. We expanded the Youth Innovation Program and Youth Entrepreneur and Apprenticeship Program. PPP likes to claim that we sent home young people. No, we didn't send home young people. We converted the programs for young people in the hinterland to a sustainable livelihood program. And the PPP cannot prove we dismissed young people. But the young people were employed on a different type of scheme. Rather than giving them money and just telling them to go into this village, and let the people who ran that program tell you what the young people did. In one notorious case, a young woman who was employed in that scheme was actually living on the coast. And she would get on a plane, go into a village, collect her allowances, and come back. And PPP wouldn't talk about that. But now they have a scheme, yes. Every young person would like to get a stipend every month. But that employment had nothing to do with developing themselves or their communities. No, you give everybody a red polo shirt and you say it's development. It's not development. It's not providing employment for young people. And it is not going to ensure the long-term development of the country, especially of the hinterland. My friends, we introduced many of the schemes which supported young people. We introduced the what I call the PETS, the Public Education Transport Service. You know, people call it 3Bs. Thousands of children got bicycles. They were able to go to school free in buses. They were able to go to school free in boats. Because there are some parts of the country we don't have roads. You can only get to school by boats, not by paddling. We give them boats. That's what we call the Public Education Transport Service. And soon the PPP got in, they shut it down. Now quietly, they're starting to provide boats. They wouldn't call it 3Bs, they wouldn't call it PETS, but quietly they're providing boats because that is how children get to school. We reintroduced or refashioned the public education nutrition service to make sure that children got a good start to the day because some children went to school hungry. And hungry children don't pay attention to lectures and classes. And we had a sound public education nutrition service. And we reintroduced the public education ideal. Ideal is called the Improving Digital Equity, Access and Learning, IDEAL program to enhance educational delivery. And we improved the public education scholarship program. So we were engaged in public education, and hundreds of young people benefited from that service. So by simply slashing and burning and trying to destroy the programs initiated by the APNU, AFC, the PPP has done great harm to our young people. My friends, I think we have to start the process of change by removing youth from the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. Let them deal with the sport, but let us take the youth issue more seriously than is being taken at present. We need a dedicated department of youth. We are talking about, 2/3 of our population. We need a ministry and a minister who look after youth without the botheration. Just focus on what young people need. And maybe that department could collaborate with the Ministry of Education, collaborate with the Ministry of Home Affairs. Home Affairs is really concerned with crime and imprisonment. And collaborate with the Ministry of Labor. Too many young people are going into our mines and timber grants and dying. We need to rebuild institutions so that young people could be trained in a comprehensive and a coherent manner. And how are we going to do that? We have to recognize that young people are a very important and special part of our population. But they know best what they need and what their communities need. And if we can get them to share in the spirit of belonging to communities, not belonging to BYU and getting red polo shirt and being turned out on these festive occasions, they'll start to be more reflective. But to embark on that program, we need to ensure that young people are treated as partners, and not by youth parliament, but by people in those communities who can sit down and discuss with young people what the problems are. And when young people see themselves as partners, as people who participate in making decisions, I think you get a different outcome. Because they will then accept those decisions because they are part of the decision. They will adopt those decisions and they'll adhere to those decisions because they're not being forced down from the ministry but they're coming from them in the community, and they will adopt it as part of their lives. So programs that are developed with youth, not imposed on youth. Programs that treat young people as partners with adults in decision making will have greater effect. If it is perceived that both adults and young people share and engage one another in an approach to these problems, and they will encourage the development of a common vision for their communities, there'll be greater success. We can't blame the young people as if they're strangers, they're foreigners, they're outsiders, and they better, as the saying used to go long ago, they should be seen and not heard. Well, many young people don't respond to that type of treatment any longer. They need people who can sit down with them, and we can develop programs, governmental programs, which ensure that young people's needs are catered for. A few years ago, the Caribbean community published a report. Again, a report looking for the future, looking to the future, looking for young people. And what did that report call for? And let me quote from that report. In order for youth governance to be effective, it must provide opportunities for young people to become empowered and to make a contribution to development through participation in decision making, generally and more specifically on matters which they have an interest and which affect them. And one of the greatest failures by the PPP administration has been the present youth initiative, PCYI. And this is because nobody consulted them. You just had one minister with a bundle of money, not even a minister, a person who was charged with youth empowerment. Give him a big bag of money, he goes around the country setting up these buildings, and the young people don't attend the buildings. They don't know what it's for. And they weren't part of the decision making. They weren't asked what they needed. They were told what they will get. So, my friends, if young people are part of the country's future, and that is inevitable, they have to be. We were all young once, and young people have to take over this country. Let us prepare them better to take over this country. We were young and we know what young people need and what young people want. But young people are essential to ensuring effective governance of the nation, of the regions, and of the neighborhoods. That's where they are, in the neighborhoods, in the communities. We cannot solve the problem of young people. We cannot give them a bright prospect without sitting with them and discussing what their needs are and crafting a program, not with botheration, not with entertainment, a program which provides for their education, which provides for the empowerment, which provides for the employment. And many people embrace the Youth Corps, and unfortunately, the PPP scrapped it. They embraced the national service, and the PPP scrapped it. The PPP wants a lot of people in red polo shirts, without the education, without the empowerment, but who are just getting a stipend, and they feel that that is the way to get back into power after general and regional election 2025. It's all a big campaign. It's nothing about developing the country, developing young people. It's all about winning elections. My friends, Guyana's future belongs to its young people, and they should be allowed to live in a safe society which protects their rights, but which recognizes their potentials. Young people should be in school. They should be at work. They should not be in prison. Thank you, and may God bless our young people.